What is the easiest way to increase average tank pH and keep it elevated? Is it CO2 scrubbers, refugiums, fresh air skimmer lines, or whole home air exchangers? Well, the answer to the easiest is the 1-part or 2-part alkalinity dosing additive you're probably already using. The problem is, which alkalinity additive boosts the pH the most, and by a factor of how much? Which ones don't affect pH, and which ones should you approach with caution for your own safety? Today, BRStv Investigates finds out. If you're already battling low pH or starting to focus on pH control more closely or hoping to squeeze out every edge that you can get to keep pH levels elevated and stable, today's experiment's for you. We've got 14 popular single and 2-part dosing additives to put to the test today, so let's dive right in. So today's experiment has 2 parts. The first one will mix each additive to the manufacturer's directed concentration, add enough solution to our test tank to raise the alkalinity by 1 dkH, and then annotate the pH before and after the dose. The second part is what we're calling the poof test, which is that white cloud poof you see when dosing soda ash or sodium carbonate, but not seen when dosing sodium bicarbonate or kalkwasser. This test will help glean what ingredients manufacturers are using, even if they don't explicitly list it on the label or the MSDS sheets. Before we get into the results, here's some facts that we already know about most alkalinity additives. 1, sodium bicarbonate should not have a significant or measurable impact to pH. 2, soda ash or sodium carbonate should moderately increase the pH. 3, some manufacturers use a blend of both carbonate and bicarbonate. And 4, calcium hydroxide or kalkwasser absolutely has a pH boosting effect, although it's typically short-lived. Okay, so with that, here's the results of the 14 popular alkalinity additives testing, those 14 being BRS sodium bicarb and soda ash, Red Sea Reef Foundation dry and liquid, Aquaforce KH+, Tropic Marin Part B, ATI Essentials. Two Little Fishies Sea Balance, Brightwell Reef Code B, dry and liquid, ESV b-ionic, Triton Method Part 3, kalkwasser or calcium hydroxide, and the growing popular sodium hydroxide or lye. Starting from the lowest pH boost all the way to the highest, 4 of the 14 showed very similar results, both in pH and the poof test, with Red Sea Reef Foundation changing pH by less than 1/100th or basically nothing. BRS Bicarb, Aquaforce, and Tropic Marin tested at 0, 0.01, and 0.04 changes to pH. Again, what I would consider negligible, if anything at all. Although we know for sure that BRS and Tropic Marin are 100% pharma bicarbonate, Red Sea and Aquaforce don't explicitly state their ingredients. However, from the pH data and the fact that all 4 showed 0 white cloud in the poof test, I believe that this entire group is primarily made up of sodium bicarbonate-based solutions. Next is the group that I'm classifying as the sodium carbonate or carbonate bicarbonate blends. At the low end of this group, we have ATI Essentials, which increase pH by 0.08, followed by Two Little Fishies Sea Balance with a 0.14 pH increase. The remaining 6 additives wound up nearly identical in pH increases, ranging from 0.2 to 0.25 respectively, with Brightwell Dry and Liquid Reef Code B and ESV all increasing pH by 0.2, followed by BRS Soda Ash at 0.21 and Triton and Red Sea Reef Foundation Liquid at 0.25. However, it's the poof test results why I believe that this group is primarily sodium carbonate or carbonate bicarbonate based, because all the additives clouded the water, some dramatically more than others. So now we get into the more interesting part with the 2 hydroxide additives, calcium hydroxide or kalkwasser and sodium hydroxide or lye. From the decades of use and success that reefers have had with kalkwasser, it's well known that one of its main benefits is a significant pH boosting effect, which after our testing was confirmed with a 5% increase of pH from 8.03 to 8.44. Surprisingly, Randy Holmes Farley's sodium hydroxide recipe showed that exact same 5% increase of 0.41 as kalkwasser, but there's 2 important caveats here. The first caveat, because sodium hydroxide lye is so concentrated, according to Randy's recipe, it's nearly a 1-for-1 swap for soda ash. meaning if you dose the same 10 milliliters of either solution, they should both have an equal increased effect to alkalinity. The major difference being sodium hydroxide has almost double the impact to pH. On the other hand, although Saltwater also has double the impact to pH, it took 50 times more solution to net that same 1 DKH increase in alkalinity. For example, in our 8-gallon test tank, it only took 5 mils of either soda ash or sodium hydroxide to boost 1 DKH, whereas the fully saturated Saltwater took over 250 mils for that same 1 DKH increase. Now, I'm probably thinking the same thing that you are at this point, which is for chasing pH, the sodium hydroxide seems to be a no-brainer choice. However, there's the second caveat here, and that is the consideration of safety. Sodium hydroxide is pure lye, which is very strong alkaline with highly caustic characteristics. The CDC describes the risks of working with lye as respiratory, can cause swelling or spasms of the larynx, leading to asphyxia. Dermal, skin contact can cause severe burns with deep ulcerations. Ocular, softening, sloughing, or ulcerations of the cornea can occur. Severe reactions could cause blindness. Gastrointestinal can cause vomiting, chest pain, corrosive injury to the mouth, throat, esophagus, and stomach, resulting in hemorrhaging or perforation of the GI tract. Now, I will say that with safe handling and proper protective measures, sodium hydroxide still looks pretty attractive as the highest pH boosting additive, but for many reefers, there's a risk-reward analysis that I'd encourage all reefers to evaluate for themselves. For me personally, I actually might consider using sodium hydroxide for my office tank because I'm very confident in my laboratory safety procedures and my tank is in an environment free of children and pets. However, in my own home, I would quickly rule this one out. That said, when would I consider using the other two groups of additives? The sodium bicarb group just isn't the right tool for this pH boosting job. However, it is the right tool for large changes to alkalinity safely without a concern of a massive pH spike. On the other hand, the sodium carbonate or bicarbonate blends group is a balance between a slight edge in tank pH and a safer additive, not only just for physical handling, but also against the chances that you crash your tank from a pH spike if overdosed. But using the hydroxides are a bit of a wobbler for me. I know and trust Saltwater, but it is limited to daily additions because the sheer dose volume that it takes to maintain alkalinity levels. Whereas I am attracted to sodium hydroxide for its concentration coupled with a significant pH boost, but the safe handling component and the potential risk for accelerated disaster if overdosed just worries me. In which case, my own personal choice for using additives as a pH buffer would have to be somewhere in the middle. I know, use, and trust the BRS Pharma Soda Ash. However, a close runner-up for me is the Triton method because it also has a full lineup of added minor and trace elements built into it. There's just two problems that I'm left with here. One, in the grand scheme of chasing higher pH, just how much overall impact do these single or two-part solutions have to my tank before considering implementing more draconian solutions like a whole home air exchanger or even CO2 scrubbers? And secondly, just how serious is a tank pH of 7.8 versus 8.3, and should I really be concerned? Well, the answer to the first question will require the next phase of today's test, while the answer to the second is in this conversation that Ryan and I had about RTA, or reef tank acidification, so check it out.